Welcome to episode 131 of the Healthy Runner podcast. We are here to help you get stronger, faster, and enjoy lifelong injury-free running. I am Coach Whitney on the Spark Healthy Runner coaching team, and I'm actually filling in for our normal host, Duane Scotti, today because, quite frankly, he's never run with a dog and he really doesn't know much about this topic. So he asked me to fill in and chat with our special guest. Today, we have a repeat guest joining us. Gretchen was a host a little while ago on episode 126 of the Healthy Runner podcast, where she shared how she overcame her hip pain. I personally have been working with her for the past 2 months, and she is fantastic. If you follow us on Facebook at all in our Facebook group, you may have seen pictures of her and her dog. She runs a lot with her dog. So, Gretchen, welcome back to the show.
Thank you. It's exciting to be back.
Yeah. So, Gretchen, for those who may not have heard you on the podcast before, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you're currently training for?
Sure. Yeah. So I've always sort of run as an adult, but back in 2019, really kind of got into it and sort of discovered that it could be more than just like going out a few miles every couple of days to stay fit. So for the past about 2.5 years now, I've been really, running, actively training for races. I've run, I can't remember how many half marathons. I really like the half marathon distance. I did my first marathon last fall, and am now currently training, or will start officially training next week for my second marathon in October. So
Yay.
I'm hoping to run the Columbus Marathon for anyone from Ohio. It's a really great race. So that's what I'm aiming for in mid-October.
That is awesome. So now that we've covered you, can you tell us a little bit about your four-legged running buddy? What's his or her name? What breed is he? And how long have you guys been running together?
Sure. So Bear, his name is Bear. He was a rescue dog. We got him in 2017, and the vet's sort of best guess was that he was about 2 years old. So 2017, he's about 7 now. I actually started, and we can share this story. I actually started running with him the first time in the summer of 2017 after I had gotten him, because I had always run with my previous dog who was smaller. He was a spaniel mix. Bear is a Newfoundland border collie mix. So if you imagine a golden retriever, like a small golden retriever, and just make him really black and furry. And that's, kind of like a black bear, thus his name Bear. That's what he looks like. So I'd had a smaller dog and had always run with that dog. And so when we got Bear, I thought here's a dog who can run. He's definitely built to do it. But I ended up getting hurt, broke a bone in my foot as a result of running with him. So I kind of was gun shy on running with him. And then, he started getting fat, and the kids weren't walking him as much as they said that they would. And so about 1.5 years ago, I said, all right, he's better trained now. We have him, he's been through all the sort of breaking in of having a rescue dog, trying to getting him acclimated and getting him trained and getting him so that he's comfortable where he is and comfortable on a leash and all of that. And I said, I'm going to do this again. I'm going to try it again because he needs it. And, as much as I'm running, he will get a guaranteed 4 to 5 runs a week, and then he won't be fat anymore. So that is for the health of the dog. And I was more comfortable doing it. So we've been running about 1.5 years, and he does great. He definitely just needed some of that training that any rescue dog kind of needs. And so he's doing great, and he is no longer fat. So that is also good.
That is awesome. So for those of you that are in our Facebook group, you may have seen pictures of my dog, Olaf. He actually looks very similar to Bear, and he looks like a black golden retriever. He is actually a flat-coated retriever, but he is also a rescue dog that is about 7 years old. So maybe they are litter mates, one in Ohio and one in Arizona. Who knows?
Exactly.
But yeah, so Olaf also runs more so with my husband than with me. I had neck surgery a handful of years ago, so holding the leash kind of scares me sometimes if he jerks. So I don't run with him quite as often as my husband does. But so he's kind of dressed for winter running. So it's perfect for you guys out in Ohio, right?
Yeah. No, he really does great in the winter. And I definitely, he's in his, we call him his summer shearing. He's had his summer shearing. So now that it's warm here, we always like once summer, once the temperatures start to tick up, we get him sheared down. So then he sort of looks like a sheep. So then we sort of call him sheep instead of bear. But but all that hair definitely helps him in the sub-zero temperatures because he if he knows I'm out there, he's waiting to go with me. So
yeah. Does he have like a trigger word if you say run? Does he get really excited or?
It's funny. He gets very excited when he sees me. I'm a creature of habit and he is too. And he always runs my cool down miles with me. So like, that's one thing I know he's not built to run 7, 8, 9, like big, long miles. So I've worked him up to 2. So at the very least, he'll get a cool down mile with me. But a lot of times I'll sort of, pace it out so that I can come back and he can get in for my last 2. And so he knows when I'm leaving. And according to my family, he plops his butt in front of the front door and waits.
Aww.
And will not move because he knows that I'm coming. And so he sees me coming up the driveway and then he's there in the, right when I open the door from the garage and he's like barking at me like, all right, let's go. So he knows if I head out, all he has to do is sit and wait and I will show up again. So he's definitely knows the signals. But yeah, it's really funny. If I say something like, I'm going to go running, you want to go running. He just looks at me like I'm on fire. But if I put the clothes on and I head out the door, all of a sudden he knows it. So
yeah, we joke in our house because if we even spell the word run, like he can spell it, he knows what that means. He gets very excited. Or if my husband, like you said, putting on the clothes, when my husband pulls his shoes out of the closet, he's ready. He goes to the laundry room where his leash hangs and he's like sitting there like, all right, let's go. Like, yeah. Yeah. So you said he does about 2 miles with you, and does he do that every run or do you just do a couple days a week with him?
Yeah. So every time I run, he'll run either 1 to 2 miles with me. And, I had a dog, my previous dog that I ran with for 12 years. He was a spaniel mix. So he was kind of like a small Springer Spaniel. And that dog, he was just built to run, had longer legs. He would, so he would do 4, 5, 6 miles with me without a problem until he got older. And then, you kind of notice that they start to slow down or they get sore. You can kind of see that in their movements. Bear, because he's very barrel chested, he's like a Newfie body on these border collie legs. I want to be very careful about what I do with him because I don't know that he's built, with his big body on his smaller legs, I don't know that he's built for intense distance. So,
right.
I've worked him up to the 2 because like I said, he was pretty out of shape when I started. And so we started with a half mile and then he got up to a mile and now he's up to 2. So we'll do at least 1, most of the time 2 every time I run. So that's a guaranteed 4 and, sometimes a 5th in there. And he hangs in, he's pretty good with it. And I think where he's at right now, I can tell, you can kind of tell he's baked by 2 miles. He's done, you can tell he drops back behind me a little bit and I'm like, yep, bud, we're almost done. Hang in there. So, but yeah, he's up to those, 1 to 2 miles every time I run. So he's getting some good miles in on his, on his legs. So that's good.
That's awesome. So when you run with him, do you have like a special leash or, I mean, I've seen people with the leashes that go around their stomachs or like the scrunchy leashes. Is there something special?
Actually I have a really great sort of like learning experience with that. So I had, when I used to run with my Spaniel, I had a waist leash and it came, right out from the middle and it was great. I could use my arms. I never had to worry about it. I don't like to carry things in my hands when I run. I don't know if anybody's like that. Like I don't do handheld water bottles. Like I want my hands free. So I had this leash and it worked great. But what I sort of use now in my own experience as the deciding factor is that dog was only 35 pounds and he could not pull me off my feet. It was physically impossible. I had control the whole time. So, and he was well-versed in running. He just ran. He didn't dart off. We had done it enough times that he understood that his job was to run and he didn't pull anymore. Bear's 72 pounds. So when I went running with him the first time, I whipped out my old, leash. It was expensive. I kept it. I'm like, this thing's great. It was awesome. But unfortunately, he wasn't well enough leash trained. We were still working on that. And he was pulling me. And he's 70 pounds. He can pull me off my feet if he wants to. And at that time he did. And I actually tripped. I live in a country setting, so I'm on country roads, and I actually just kind of stepped off where the asphalt curves off a little bit, which normally wouldn't have been an issue had I been by myself. I might have like tweaked it, you know, it might have been one of those, crap, you know, kind of shake it off things, but I rolled my ankle slightly. He yanked me off my feet, and I flew kind of through the air, and I ended up with a busted bone in my foot, an ankle. I was in an air cast for 6 weeks and physical therapy for another 4. So he really torched my ankle, and I had a bunch of road rash, still have some scars from that. And I kind of knew then that he was too strong and that I needed to be able to let him go. God forbid, but if it's going to be me or him, I need to be able to let him go so that he can't yank me off my feet. So I run with him now, just a standard leash. And it's not bad. I've gotten used to, you know, that mile or two holding his leash in my hand, not a big deal.
Right.
But I know that if I had to, I could let him go and he wouldn't be able to hurt me, you know, yank him, you know, by yanking me off my feet again. But he is so much better trained now, and he understands what he's supposed to be doing, so he doesn't pull. But that was like my sort of learning experience. I'm like, if this dog can yank you off your feet, you need to have something that would allow you to quick release him,
Right.
because, you know, you don't want to end up hurt. You know, ultimately you want to enjoy running with your dog, but if he's strong enough to move you, you want to think carefully about how you leash him or her, you know.
Right. Yo, of course.
Sure.
And that's part of why I'm hesitant to run with Olaf as often as my husband does, just because I don't want to have surgery on my neck again. Like, I don't want to go through that. I have screws in my neck. I have screws in my lower back. Like, yeah, is it worth it? But
Yeah.
I used to run with a friend that would use a gentle leader. So it's almost like a muzzle that they would have. And it was awkward for the dog, so they don't want to pull. So that is an option for some people, that if they want to use the waist leash, that is something that you guys could consider using on your dog. It doesn't hurt them. It's a little awkward for them at first because it goes over their nose and their mouth, but it leaves a big enough gap so their tongue can stick out, they can breathe, all of that. And the leash comes down and connects under their chin. So it just kind of is awkward. So they don't pull as much.
I used Bear has, you know, just a standard collar. And like I said, he understands now what he's supposed to be doing. And, you know, when you're first going out with your dog and running, you know, they might pull, they might stop and try to pee on everything. And it's a matter of trying to decide who's going to be more stubborn, you or your dog. And, you know, he knows now he can't stop. There are 2 places he's allowed to stop and pee. He knows on his route, and that's where he pees now, because I wouldn't let him, you know, like, nope, come on, you know, come, let's go. Every time he would try to sort of veer off, he has these sort of 2 places where he does his business. And that's kind of the process of doing it. If you've never run with the dog before, you just have to sort of keep doing it and keep that, you know, be more stubborn than they are. Like, nope, sorry, no peeing, nope, let's go, let's go, you know. And they get it fairly quickly. But I had on my spaniel, he actually, you know, he didn't pull, but he was always out in front of me. And I always sort of felt concerned about like him being like, you know, sort of like on his leash. He had a harness that worked great. And I know a lot of people that use the harness on their dog, and he loved it, you know, wore it all the time. And it also, he was smaller. I had more control of him with the harness, but that's another option too. If people are like, oh, but I don't want my dog choking on his collar. Yeah. The harness doesn't go around their neck. The harness is on their shoulders. So it actually does give you more control of the dog. Again, if the dog is small enough for you to be able to control. So when I've done trail runs and things, I see a lot of harness leashes on the people running with their dogs too.
Yeah. Yeah. And some of those harnesses actually have the buckle under their chest too. So it's similar to the gentle leader. So it's pulling up slightly in an awkward way that it kind of has the dog a little more slowed down maybe.
Yeah.
But you said you know, Bear was a little bit older when he started running. I mean, he's only 7, so you're not in the stages of getting a new dog or anything yet, but next time, do you recommend for people that have new puppies or older dogs, what do you think it's better to start them early on as a runner or wait until they're a little bit older?
Sure. I mean, and I think you definitely want to always ask your vet and that's because I know and you know, I'm definitely not a vet, but I know there's a time where you need to wait until that dog if it's a puppy, you know, you get them leash trained, but you need to wait until there's a level of growth with them before they can start going. And then you have to sort of understand that distance, you know, like don't going the same thing with a human, don't go out too far, too fast, you know, the whole spiel. Though you have to work the dog with that. And I think I think you also know, when I got Bear, when we first took him to the vet, I said, can I run with this dog? Is this a dog that would be capable of running? And the vet said, oh yeah, you can run with this dog. He's, at the time when we got him, he had been out in the world, so he was very thin. So the only thing the vet said was, let's wait till we get his weight up normal, and then definitely you can run with him. Obviously, he may have gone a little overboard on that since he got so fat, but yeah, I mean, I think you definitely should ask your vet. I don't think any dog is incapable of running unless they have some sort of injury, or if they're really, really old. Look at your dog.
Right.
How does he move? How does she move? Can they get up and down things, stairs? When they're laying down, do they get up and down really easily? If it's a dog that is still very much capable of moving and is running around in your yard, that's a dog that can run. But you're going to know your dog and what you see them do every day. And if they don't have any issues and your vet doesn't seem to think it would be a problem, then absolutely, I think you can take a dog running, teach them to run, even if they're an adult dog. Bear would have been, we tried when he was 2, and then started up again when he was, 4 or 5, and he figured it out relatively quickly, and is the better for it. So I think ideally any dog is probably going to be better trained if you've had them from a puppy, but and even a rescue mutt, I think once they get acclimated, right, and you've asked and they're healthy, especially if it's one that had come from wandering the world as Bear did, once they're, back to their sort of fighting weight, why not? Especially if they can move freely and they don't have any issues. So,
right. I think you're absolutely right. I mean, check with your vet, whether your dog is a puppy. I mean, you have to wait until they've had all their vaccinations and their growth plates or whatever are at a good place. But, I think any dog, like you said, any dog is capable of running. You just need to make sure that it is safe for your dog when you're ready to start. And it is a learning process, both for the dog and for the runner, because you're going to have to learn how to teach your dog commands. Like Olaf knows when my husband clicks, he'll go, and Olaf knows it means he's either turning left or turning right, or he'll say, Olaf, straight, and he'll go straight across the street. Like he knows the commands, and, they get conditioned. My friend that I used to run with, her dog would hear our watches beeping, and she would know that means we're going to go do some sprints or we're just about done. So she would hear the beeping of the watch, and she'd look back at us and she would take off. She knew. So I think it is important for you to be aware that there is going to be that learning curve. There is that time where, like you said earlier, who's going to be more stubborn, you or the dog? But you also have to, I mean, my parents growing up, we had a dachshund. He would get tired walking downtown, and he would just lay down. He would just lay down, and he weighed 9 pounds. So you'd pick him up and you just carry him. But you can't do that with Bear or Olaf, because they're a little bit heavier. So
no, you definitely, dogs are very much, that repetitive learner. And if you just sort of stick to the same thing over and over again, they get it quickly. They really learn patterns really, really quickly. And if you just stick with saying the same things over and over again, Bear knows no, he knows heel, he knows, let's go. If he gets distracted, I'm like, nope, let's go. And he just turns his head and he's like, sorry. You can see the dog going, nope, you're right, I shouldn't look at that. So they get used to it, and they understand what those things all mean. And, and even with Bear, like I said, I'm out in the country. He knows when we're not, so I have like a country cul-de-sac, which is actually a mile if you do the whole thing. But if we go out on the sort of main road, he now knows that he runs in the berm. Because he's on my left side, he runs on my left side. So he's in the berm, we're facing traffic. He knows that that's where he stays, and I'm on the concrete, and he doesn't get concerned about the cars coming by. He now understands how we maneuver around all of that, and does great with it. He doesn't even look at them. Before, when we first started doing it, he'd kind of get distracted by the cars, and I'm like, nope, let's go. We keep going. It doesn't matter if these things go by us. And, I think within 2 weeks, he got it all. He understood, so that was 8 times I took him out, and he was getting it, and has gotten it pretty quickly. So yeah, if you just have that sort of again, are you going to be more stubborn? Make it repetitive, do the exact same things every time. They pick up pretty quickly what you want them to do. And, dogs love to run. unless
They
it's,
do.
unless it's a dachshund, probably not going to run. But in general, they love to run. And so they want to be out there with you. They really do. And once they get a feel for how you want them to behave, they'll do it. And they'll enjoy it for sure.
Did you mentioned he runs on your left. Did you do any like leash training before you started running, like to teach him to always be on your left and not to be zigzagging in front of you or
Yeah.
darting after the bunnies or whatever?
Yeah. So, and that was the thing, it's funny because every dog is different. So my first dog, that spaniel I've talked about, was a rescue, and he just ran with me. He never needed, whoever had him prior to me getting him. Again, he was found in the woods. I seem to be the person who rescues the dogs who've been found in the woods, but he knew he just ran. He ran next to me or in front of me and didn't pull. And I think it was just naturally he wasn't a puller, and and he really, I could control him again on a leash. He was only 35 pounds. It was very easy to control him. Bear, when we got him, had no leash manners whatsoever, and that, I think, was my mistake in thinking I could run with him before he was fully leash trained, and especially being 70 pounds. So we had gone through, we took him to doggy obedience school and went through a whole bunch of weeks of doggy training. And when I first started to run with him, he was still real early in that process. And I should have waited, knowing, because he really had no leash manners at all. Dog didn't know what to do. So once he understood and learned, and we did all of the training, and we could actually comfortably walk him, and he wasn't pulling and he wasn't all over the place, and he understood heel and sit and all these kind of things. Once it was a pleasure to walk him, then I knew I could run him. So then it was just a matter, since I had busted a foot in the whole adventure, it was a matter of me working back up the nerve to be like, no, you should run the dog, like working back up. But he really did. He needed some manners. He needed to be trained, and that's what we needed to do first. He had to be able to be walked easily before I was going to be able to run him. So that would be my other like heads up, my other sort of live and learn, was that I tried too soon. Again, because he was too big for me to be able to overpower, for lack of a better way to put it.
Right. Yeah. And I think, especially if you get a dog as a puppy, I mean, they get bigger. So it's easier to leash train and control and teach them all of these manners when they're smaller and more controllable, because they weigh 20 pounds versus 70. And I mean, let's be honest, you can only hold so much weight in your hand before. So have you done any, I guess, leash training to get him to not pull on a leash?
Yeah. You know what? And ironically, what worked was the leash training, the walking, having him learn to walk and not pull. It naturally translated to running. So he runs on my left side. He heels when he runs, and he doesn't pull. And that was one of the things that I noticed when I did restart my attempts to running with him, as I was kind of in my mind thinking, all right, I'm going to hand leash him, and he's going to probably pull, and I'm going to have to work through that. But he actually didn't. He understood, I'm guessing, because I don't know, I can't read his mind, but it just felt like he understood the running to be a faster version of the walking that he already knew how to do. And so he stayed, he heels and he goes and he does what he's supposed to do. So he doesn't pull, which is great.
That's awesome.
And I think that it was just all that leash training and all that obedience school that we did that really helped kind of bring him around for that. And, like I said, I think he enjoys it. So I think the better, the more he can tell that I'm not angry with him, I think the whole thing goes better for him too. So he's kind of figuring out that if he behaves, it's more fun. It's a longer run. I'm not above turning around and coming back if he's having a temper tantrum, which,
like
early on, once in a while. Yeah. Every once in a while we have a bad run early on, and I'm like, we're out. If you're not feeling this, I'm certainly not going to ruin my own run in the name of your fitness. And I think he kind of got that too. So he's pretty well behaved and rarely has one of those runs where he's kind of like not paying attention.
Right.
He's doing pretty good. But yeah, I think the pulling was just leash manners, and at least for him, it seemed as though he believed. He just sort of translated that. Okay, we're not walking, we're just going to run, but we're doing the same thing. So
yeah, just a faster version.
Faster version. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So since you run, right now it's summer and it's warm.
Yep.
Do you bring water for him, or do you give him some of yours? I know some people can take their hydration, squeeze it, and they kind of drink it like a water fountain.
Yeah, I've done
anything, or can he make the 2 miles typically?
most of the time he can make the 2 miles typically, but for example, because we've talked about this, I'm an early morning runner. So it's, like today's 90 degrees, but when, like if I would have gone out, I think it was like 70 or 80 earlier in the morning when we would have been out. And he seems to be able to handle the 2 miles in that weather. What I have done in the past is, because we have sort of a route, it's just the 2 miles. So I'll plant a water bottle that I know I'm going to pass. So I'll have it in my hand and then, plop it down. And then halfway through, if I feel like he's looking a little rough, I have, dumped the water for him and he's drank that. But for the most part, he can make it. If I was running later in the day, if we were afternoon running, like right now, it's hot as all get out outside. If I was going to have to run him, then I would certainly carry water, because there's no way he would even get through the 2 miles without having to stop and take a break and, and have some water. So I think, again, it depends on when you're running, how hot is it, and and how far are you taking that dog. If you are going to need water, your dog's going to need water. If you're going out far enough, your dog is the type of dog who can go the distance with you. If you need the water, you need it for your dog as well.
That's a great tip.
Boring.
Yeah. Yeah, and I guess just along with like the leash manners, teaching them to drink either from your hydration pack or bringing one of those collapsible cups or something for them, just like you bring for yourself, like you said, especially in these hotter months. But we also have to be careful in these hotter months, because running later in the day, because the pavement and the asphalt get so hot that, you can burn those little pads on their feet really, really easily. I saw a post that said, what did it say? It was something along the lines, if you can stand outside on the concrete barefoot for, I can't remember how long it was, then your dog is okay to run. If not, then your dog shouldn't be running. Like, would you, and so in my thought process, if I wouldn't let my kids go outside barefoot because it's too hot, I'm not going to let my dog run outside.
Yeah.
Although Olaf thinks he's a cat, and we live in Arizona, and today is not that bad, but yesterday was like 110, and he went into the backyard. He's black, laid on the pavers. He was basking in the sun for like 20 minutes, and he came inside like panting and like, he must think he's a cat. I don't know, but he likes the heat. So.
Well, and it's funny too. And like, I'm in Ohio, so, we have the hot summers. But the winters I have to worry about and think about salt. So because I'm on the road, because I'm in the country, I don't have sidewalks to run on. So for anyone who is, who does have winter, and if they are on the road runner like me, and you're going to take your dog, that's something to be considered too. If the road's been heavily salted, that can burn. It'll, as their feet start to sweat, it'll burn, the pads. So that's something else to consider. I kind of got lucky in that I didn't have that issue this year, but that's one thing that will make me not take him, is if the roads have been recently salted, like within my run. So like, I'm always out first. And if I notice that there's a lot of salt, I usually wait to, and then I'll just walk him later in the day. After some of the salt has been cleared by the cars and stuff, but that can be an issue. And I've had him and my other dog even build up ice balls in their feet. If this ever happens to someone, I actually thought one time Bear blew a knee. I was like, oh my God, I tore this dog's ACL, what the heck? But what had happened is they sweat through their paws, and he had some hair, he's wearing his heavy winter coat, and the ice, they had gotten wet, and then it had begun to sort of pack into his feet, and they were forming ice balls in between his little pads. So he was starting to limp, and I thought, oh my gosh, I've blown his knee. This is terrible. And I stop and I start to feel around, and I'm like, hey buddy, what's going on? And I feel his foot, and there's like this ice cube stuck to in between his pads. And I'm like, okay, yay. I can get rid of this. So once I pulled that out, he was running fine again, but it was an ice ball, and it's because of the sweating and all those things happen. So, you sort of have to be, wary of their feet. They do make dog booties. I've never met a dog I can get a shoe on. Maybe if you start as a puppy, but I have yet to, Bear would, there's no way. So
if you want to do something funny, try putting a sock on just one foot, and then watch them like try and walk without using that foot. It is hysterical. But the ice and the salt, that's not something like living where we do, I would never even think of. Like, we watch out for cholla, which are like, they call them jumping cactus. But if you get really close to this particular cactus that looks fuzzy, It has all these tiny little barbs that they literally jump onto anything that's moving. They like jump off the cactus. So you have to be careful, like where the dog is in proximity to that, or if there's one on the ground, because they'll pick those up in like the side of their foot. And those things are not only the little prickers, but then they have like the little fish hooks on them. So you need like pliers to get them out. So another thing that we have to do out here, which you probably don't have to do, we have to do rattlesnake training.
Oh, yeah.
The dog, what the rattlesnakes sound like, what they smell like. They actually use a rattlesnake they've taken the venom out of. So the dog actually gets bit, but there is no venom. So they know what it feels like, because even the bite alone doesn't feel good. And they teach the dog, like when they smell that smell, like Olaf will put on the brakes and he's like, I am not going any further. Not going to happen, Mom.
That's amazing. Yeah, I've never had a rattlesnake train a oh my gosh, though. But it's great that they do that, because if you are going to be in an area where there are going to be creatures like that the dog may not, to have them trained to avoid them is great, because, the point is to enjoy it, not get your dog hurt, and they're not going to know a rattlesnake unless you teach them,
right.
Yeah.
And I think that goes back to like that first vet visit when you're asking about running, like say, hey, are there any special trainings that I should do with my dog based on where we live? Like the rattlesnake training, or should I be aware of the salt when we're running, or what element should I be aware of, or should my dog be aware of, to make sure that both of us are safe? Because if I'm running with Olaf, or my husband is running with him, and he does put on the brakes, we end up like tripping over him, basically. I mean, it's great because we're not getting bit by the rattlesnake that's in front of us, but that can be dangerous too. But there are so many little things that you don't think of, but a vet will, automatically have those going in his mind. So that's, there's a lot of little things that go into running with your dog. It's not as easy as just throwing on the leash and going out the door, right?
Yeah. And I think if you're willing to work through all of those things, it's a lot of fun. I mean, I really like taking him, and, part of me wishes he could do more miles. And I think I would like to, I always work up more in the winter because it's colder. It's easier on him. He's black, like we've said, so I would love to get him up further. I don't know. He's not going to do a double-digit run with me, but even 3 or 4, it's a lot of fun and he enjoys it. And I think it adds to that bond that you sort of already have with your dog. And it's a great, at least if you're busy like me, the dog gets the exercise. You're already running, you get the dog with you, dog is exercised, he is a happy camper, and he's done his thing, and you don't have to worry about, I got to get the kids to walk him. Oh shoot, dog hasn't had a walk in forever. It's nice to not have to worry about that, knowing that it's good for the health of the dog, and it's good for the mental health of the dog to get exercise. You tack it on to what you're already doing, and that's great. It kills 2 birds with 1 stone. You get your own training in, and get a few miles for the dog, and and everybody's happy. So if you've got the patience, if you're willing to put in a little bit of work, and and it's not months of work, it's not even really that many weeks of work, just to get them acclimated to what you want them to do, it's certainly a really worthwhile and rewarding experience. And like I said, gets you the exercise and the dog the exercise that they should have.
Right. And especially with the bigger dogs that are really built for running, like they need that. They need to burn off that energy. They need to be out there using their brains, using their muscles. They need to be out there. I will say another thing that would have been helpful for us. We didn't really socialize Olaf as much as we should have. The few times we did take him to like a dog park, he got bit. So he's terrified of German Shepherds, little snack sized dogs. He's terrified. So if he sees dogs, he like loses his mind. So we end up having to cross to the other side of the street and then like start sprinting just to pass the dog. And then we're far enough away, but he's looking over his shoulder to make sure the dog's not chasing him. So that's another thing to consider too. Like before you start running with your dog, make sure that your dog has been socialized, not just with dogs, but with humans as well. Because some dogs, even seeing a person is scary to them. My in-laws have a dog. They don't run with her, but she's terrified of men with beards. I'm not sure where that stems from because they got her as a puppy, but there are little things like that that you can work with your dog to eliminate those fears or the anxiety when they see, the German Shepherd down the street kind of thing.
Yeah, no, and that's the one thing that we couldn't train, again, Bear's a rescue. We don't know what happened to him or what he was and was not exposed to in the first couple of years of his life. And that's the one thing we haven't been able to fix, unfortunately, is he's very much unsocialized and around other animals. So my first rescue dog, the Spaniel, he could have cared less. And I ran him everywhere and it didn't matter who was coming and going. Other dogs, he just kept on going. He didn't care. But Bear very much does. So I have to, when I do, I'm an early morning runner, so it helps. There's no one else out there. But he does lose it if he sees another dog. And so that's the other thing is if I do on occasion pass a neighbor's dog, I think we joked, I ended up running the last 3/10 of a mile up and down my driveway because one of the neighbor dogs was lost, and he's mean too. That the neighbor dog is mean. And so he goes nuts. Bear sees him and kind of freaks out. And so I just turned and I'm like, you know what? I have 3/10 of a mile. I'm going to run up and down my driveway. I don't care at this point. But that's, that's the thing, like how, so what do I do to get a better hold on his lead? I wrap the lead around my hands. So now I have more control of him. I've shortened it up. I pull him close and I use all the commands to try to keep him as calm as I can. But that's something that we've never been able to work out. And I've just sort of accepted that that's who he is. So I know now, okay, this is what we do. If we're going to pass a dog on the rare occasion that we do, here's what I do to keep him under control. Here's my places to go and turn to avoid if I see a dog coming. And, and those are other things you sort of have to work out. Again, with a rescue, I think it's different when you have a puppy and you've been able to socialize that animal and raise them from when they're little. But if you do, rescue an animal, some things you just, it is what it is. They have learned behaviors and experiences that you may not be able to work your way through. And Bear's got that. So, he's not the dog I will take to a dog race. I would love to, he'd lose his mind. It wouldn't be fun because there would be all these dogs around and he would absolutely just unhinge.
Right.
But that's okay. I didn't get him so that I could run races with him.
Right.
So, but I feel your pain. He really, no matter what we do, we've tried, and it's just, we're sort of like, okay, this is Bear. And that is his quirk and we will work with that.
Yeah.
And I've gotten, like I said, keen enough to know, all right, here's how we get around this situation on the rare time when I do pass a dog. So.
Right. Yeah. And we're the same way. Like I said, we'll cross the street or whatever, but Olaf is on Hyler. We live in a master planned community. So it's a neighborhood. We're very close to all the houses, are very close together, cookie cutter kind of thing. And you can see the hair on the back of his neck kind of go up before we even get to a corner because he's anticipating there being a dog at the corner. So we run either really early in the morning when there aren't many people, or if we run around the school, it's about a mile loop from our house around the school and back. We'll just kind of do that because not many people go around the school. But another thing I did want to mention to those of you that might be listening that have a friendly dog or a dog that was socialized, just because you think your dog is friendly and well socialized, doesn't mean that a runner wants to meet your dog. Keep your dog on a leash. Like, I can't tell you how many times, and I think it's a little schnauzer puppy dog. I don't know. It's not I call it a snack size dog that I see every morning, and he's never on a leash. So I cross the street because he seems friendly, but I don't know. I don't want to get bit by a dog. I know so many people that have nearly escaped dog bites or have had dog bites because the owner says, well, my dog is friendly. Well, no, they're not, because they don't like having people running past them. So if you have a friendly dog or a well-trained dog, please keep them on a leash unless you're like in your yard or at a dog park. Just for other runners, not all dogs are friendly. So if your friendly dog comes in contact with Bear or with Olaf, he might turn into a mean dog because he's being growled at. So just be aware of that as well. So you said you run early morning. Do you have any sort of light vest or light flashy thing that you put on him so people can see him as well as yourself?
You know what? I didn't until recently. So I have a Knox gear. And I haven't gotten, I will probably spring this winter for a Knox gear for him. But I do have light ups for him. There's little snaps on it, things I'll put on his collar, and I've got one on the leash. So he's got some lights, because especially in the winter. In the summer, it's no big deal. It's light out, when I go to run, but I run a lot in the dark in the winter. So he's got some lights, just because he's black. I feel like he would be hard to see anyway. And then you put a black dog on a black road, and at 5 a.m, and he needs to be lit up. So yes, he has some sparkle, if you will, some lights for sure. And I think I will probably spring for a Knox gear to stick on him for this coming winter. But just because it'd be easy, throw it on him, he's lit up, life is good. But I'm lit up like the moon, and I put some on him as well. and I'll have I've got a flashlight too, which helps, like a handheld flashlight. As much as I hate stuff in my hands, that one kind of wraps around your knuckles, so it doesn't feel so bad. And have a flashlight so I can see him. I can see where I'm at. If he does his business, I can see it to pick it up. If he happens to put it in someone's yard, it's helpful, because I have been not able to find the pile. I do wear glasses, and in low light, I don't see well. And sometimes he, before I had that flashlight, he would do his thing, and I'd be like, God, I don't know where it is. Like, I can't see it. It's so dark. So yeah, definitely, the dog needs to be lit up, for sure. They can see, I know he can see, but I can't. So.
Right. Well, actually, Knox Gear is one of our sponsors. So for those of you that are listening that run with a dog or plan to run with your dog, you want your dog to be safe just like you. So Knox Gear has given us a 35% discount on their human light vests, as well as their Light Hound vests. So if you use the code Healthy Runner at checkout, you can enjoy that 35% discount. So maybe that would help Bear get a Christmas present this year.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Yeah. So those are great. And the knuckle lights are great because, you can kind of even see in front of him, so he doesn't step in a hole. I mean, dogs can see pretty well in the dark, but like you said, you never really know what's out there. So better for you to be safe, him to be safe, everybody to see. Yeah. So is there any other gear that you would recommend for somebody starting out running with their dog?
Yeah, I don't think so. I think we covered a lot of it. Just knowing the conditions you're in, and how long you're going to take them out there. Definitely a collapsible bowl that you can stuff in a pocket if you're gonna, be out long enough where that dog's going to need water. Other than the lights, if you're in an area, obviously, please pick up the mess. I'm lucky, I'm on a lot of country roads, so sometimes I don't actually have to, because it's not really anybody's yard. But if it's somebody's yard, I definitely have a bag, and I pick it up. And I actually run a loop. So if it's on the trip out, I toss it to the other side of the road and pick it up on the loop back. And so my neighborhood has begun to know my little bags. If they see them on the side of the road, they know I'm coming back.
Nobody wants to run holding that. That's just
I'm like,
not a pleasant thing to do.
I've actually seen people tie it to the dog, and I'm like, I gotta be honest, I don't know that I would want to run with my own stuff around my neck. So I feel bad about if I tie it to the dog's leash. So I toss it, and I know that we're coming back, so it works.
No. I mean, we tie the empty bag to the leash, but like I said, we live in a master plan community. So there are dog poop bag stations that have the little trash cans. And, so I know that I only have to hold it for like a quarter mile before I can throw it away or whatever.
Garbage day is a great way to run, because you just pop it in the next can. Garbage hasn't come yet. So
yes, absolutely. But if even if you're not a runner, please pick up your dog's stuff. Nobody needs that anywhere. Just another thing you can do to help out the community. So if there was one thing you could change about the misconception of running with a dog, what would that be?
It's funny. I think that just the idea that it's bad for the dog. I would post sometimes, if I just post on my general Facebook page, a picture of me and the dog, it's social media. So what do you have to expect? And I'll have like friends be like, oh, you shouldn't, it's too hot for him. You shouldn't run with your dog. You shouldn't, you're going to hurt him. He's, look at him panting. That means he's dehydrated and uncomfortable. And I'm like, or it just means that he ran a mile, so I think that that would be the one misconception, is that you're going to hurt the dog. You know, if you do your due diligence, you ask your vet, you know your animal, you know if he's agile and if he can move without being hurt, and you know his signals and all that kind of, or her signals, it's great for the dog. It's great. They love it. And so I think that would be the thing that I would, change, is, or put out there. Like, chances are you are not going to hurt this dog. If you take all the right steps and, and just pay attention to them, it's great for them. So I think if anybody's sitting there thinking, well, I've heard it'll hurt my dog, I don't want this to happen, I don't want this to happen, I think that that you're doing your dog a disservice, and even you, to not be able to have that sort of relationship with your dog. I think that would be one thing. And and the other thing is that it would be too hard. It does not take long for the dog to figure out what they're supposed to be doing. And, like we've both said, if you're just a little bit more stubborn than the dog, you'd be surprised at how quickly they pick it up. And, and it's pretty easy to do.
Right. Yeah, I think I agree with everything you've said. This has been really fun to chat about dogs, because how often do we get to chat about dogs as runners?
I know, right?
Yeah. Normally it's about, preventing injuries or getting ready for races. So this has been really fun. And especially since they must be cousins, Olaf and Bear.
I know.
When I was creating the graphic for the promo for this episode, I was like, people are going to think that this is the same dog.
I know.
We're both blonde. We both have the same dog. Like, yeah, it was pretty funny. But
that's great.
Yeah, they are two different dogs in two different states.
Yep. But apparently cousins, long lost cousins.
Long lost cousins, because they're about the same age. So who knew?
Exactly.
So, well, Gretchen, thank you so much for accepting my invite and sharing your expertise on running with a dog. And all of you guys out there in podcast land, thank you so much for listening to this. And if you are watching the replay in our Facebook group or on our Spark Healthy Runner YouTube channel, we see you and we appreciate all of you. So everybody, let's maintain strong mind, strong body, and just keep running. All right. Bye, guys.